Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your host, Tony Cañas, and today I have with me Myranda Elizabeth Joseph. Although you have Myranda Joseph on the Zoom name, so I don't know if you want to. Oh, you do use Elizabeth on LinkedIn. Okay, Myranda Elizabeth Joseph. Second time on the podcast. So first of all, thank you for coming back. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having me in this busy conference season.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of in a lull in between CPCU and Applied Net. So I have a few days off. I'm actually in Columbus. So not far.
No?
Miranda was one of her first career episodes. So basically, we met at a Gamma Iota Sigma conference, and then at that time you were calling yourself a hybrid because you were both an independent agent and an RMI student. And so we had you on the podcast back when Lamparelli was hosting. That was episode 131. And my favorite thing about that episode is that within a couple of days, you ended up getting an opportunity directly from that episode. So I'd love to have you tell that story. And basically, you've now been at Westfield Insurance, where that opportunity took you for a good while,
Almost 5 years.
and have had amazing career growth. So anyway, yeah, let's start with that story. Tell me how that went after you came on the podcast, and then let's talk about your career since then.
Yeah, and the podcast was wild. At the time, I think I was 23 or 24. So it was almost 5 years ago. And I look back on that. I've only watched it like 2 times because it's hard for me, to watch things that I've done before. And I go, oh my gosh, I've grown so much. And for anybody that wants to see what their personal and professional development looks like, do one of these every 5 years because you're gonna get a good awakening where so nervous. I was talking so fast. And if I could tell myself or any young people out there advice, now being 5 years older, I'm like, just take a beat, be patient. You don't have to eat the elephant in just one bite, which was what I was doing at that time of my life, and running really fast. Working full time as an agent to support myself, and I was a wife. I was practically a newlywed, and trying to finish my bachelor's in insurance at Kent State and doing my CPCU at the same time, which I don't recommend all of that to anybody at all.
Okay. So I do think it's important to like separate how crazy that time was, and like you wouldn't do it again, right? I totally get that. I did CPCU in 5 months, and I don't recommend it to anybody. I wouldn't do it again. I don't regret having done it though. So
Oh yeah, no regrets.
it puts you where you are today, right? And if you're gonna kill yourself in an extreme amount of work, education, etc. at the same time, do it early in your career. So while you have the energy, while you have less
Yes.
responsibilities, and while it has the maximum amount of time to pay off, right? So you don't. It doesn't sound like you regret the
No.
speed at which you were running back in that day.
No, because even looking back at it now, it just gives me perspective. Um, and at the same time, my husband was getting his master's, so uh, it made sense that we just both ran really hard, and truly, it set me up really well to be able to then, when considering starting a family, to go, I'm so glad Not that I've stopped learning or like I'm a lifelong learner or what I would like to think. Right now I'm reading a lot about toddler speech development because that's where we're at and this time of our life and hard market stuff. Um, but it was good to close that chapter before opening another one with having a young family.
So much harder to do it with young kids. I
Yes.
don't have kids, and Carly doesn't have kids either. We spent like 5 years asking people, hey, would you write us an article on how to do CPCU with young kids? And it took us like 5 years for somebody to actually do it, because anybody who did CPCU with kids is so busy with the
Yeah.
kids that they have a hard time writing an article. And finally, it is on the website now. So you you come on the podcast.
Mhm.
How does it at that time? You're an independent agent running like crazy to finish your RMI degree at the same time. uh how do you end up at Westfield?
So not a lot of people know this, and I've been here for 5 years, so it's okay to share this. Um, I entirely forgot I applied to the Westfield flood job. 100% forgot about it, and had seen Westfield at a couple different Gamma events, heard very highly of them, and even one of the agents, Chuck Yule at my old agency, said to me, Miranda, if you're going to go to any carrier, go to Westfield.
It
And
is a
now Chuck,
wonderful carrier.
it's fabulous. We have an awesome culture, the strength of 175 years, um, and I wouldn't want to be any other place. And Westfield, if you're listening, I'd like to be here for 25 more years too. So we'll put that out into the universe, make that happen. But um, yeah, so I had applied to that job, forgot I had, um, and I got a call from a man who has truly been my mentor, my rock, my sounding board, and overall the most amazing insurance professional. One of the most that I've had in my career. And so Brian Bowerman calls me and he says, hey, you applied for this flood job. Let's talk. And I remember I was in the parking lot of the OSU James Hospital because we had just visited a family member who had brain cancer. And I was caught off guard by it and I like had to put my positive face on and be like, yeah, of course. And so the day of the Columbus Gamma Iota Sigma Regional Conference was the same day that um, I had the interview with Brian. So I'd done part of the conference. I said hey to Connie Fry and Andy Farber and was like, the Westfield recruiters, if anybody doesn't know them, and at their booth and grabbed a couple Westfield tchotchkes and said, hey, I'm about to go interview. I'm stepping away from the conference and we'll see how this Westfield interview goes. And I still do have the letter to this day that Connie wrote me um, when she found out that um, I got the job, and she said, "Looks like that interview went really well." And so that's the culture at Westfield, where we care about each other. We want to see each other succeed. So started first carrier job, company car, working directly with agents, and again the theme was I was running really hard. And my territory was 3,000 agents across the nation
it,
because at the time,
I've got to say, it was a
yeah,
massive jump from independent agent
yeah,
to national territory.
yes,
Right. Like a more normal trajectory would have been like independent agent, underwriter, local, like some sort of regional territory manager, then some sort of national territory. So anyway, how many? So at 20, early 20s,
mhm,
massive jump. So
23.
Okay, so how many agents were you managing?
3,000.
How do you even start getting your heads around a territory that's and of course like with flood, you are nobody's main game, right? So for the listeners, if you've never been a territory manager or what the agents call a marketing rep, uh, it's a really awesome role, but it's a really weird role because you're nobody's boss, right? Nobody reports to
Yeah.
you. The agents are independent. The underwriters don't report to you. You work closely with them to make sure that you can that your people that your agents can write stuff. Your agents have other companies they can use. You're really quarterbacking with no authority.
Mhm.
And then if you're lucky, you're the Liberty rep for agencies that have large Liberty books, and you're like a really important person for them. But if you're a specialty rep, like Myranda was with Flood, or me with American Modern, being a specialty company, right? You're a small fish in every pond, and
Yes.
somehow you have to influence them into writing more and better business for you.
And it was wild. I mean, that jump, and Craig Welsh, who is my leader now, he had always been my boss's boss the entire time I've been at Westfield. And I remember Brian saying, like, I was telling Craig, we gotta take a chance on her. And it was a big jump. I mean, looking back on it, it helped me grow really well because I got really good at being uncomfortable. So uncomfortable, going to parts of the country that I had never been to. Um, Uncomfortable going, hey, I need to stand in front of hundreds of people in Florida and teach a continuing education class. Learning how to um, do marketing materials, and I wrote my own flood CE classes and learned how to file CE credits and learned underwriting specifics of flood. And but the main thing was, and I would bookmark this, if you're an aspiring territory manager, anybody who works with agents and who is agent facing, is be true to your word. So if I come in to an agency, or if I'm working with an agent and we have a great meaningful conversation and I have action items after it, or if I am trying to drive a relationship, it is doing what you say you're going to do. Because if you don't, it's just giving people a lot of fluff. And the next time you want to be in their office, they're like, why do you want to be in here? But, if I next time, maybe I helped you with an account or helped you place something, or it could be anything. And it could be an action that doesn't really move the needle, but you helped them out. That speaks volumes. So bookmark that for anybody looking to.
And our industry, right, average age is pretty high.
Yeah.
Agency principals and producers uh, are overwhelmingly male. We're getting better at that. But basically, like, I had trouble getting taken seriously as, I don't know, a 33-year-old male. When I first got a territory rep role, I can only imagine as a 23-year-old female, right, like looking 18 and a half. Uh, how did you manage that? How did you manage getting credibility with agents that had been running agencies before you were born?
And I'm still working on that. So I can share a little bit, but again, this is a developing journey for me, which I wish I could just like wave a magic wand overnight and look 45 for the rest of my life. But I know that's not going to happen. And so a lot of it was, the first thing I wanted to do was, if I was going to be working with folks, I wanted to know my stuff. So if I'm going to be talking to you about flood, um, because I get uncomfortable when what I'm working on right now in my own professional development, which everybody is on their own professional journey. And if you're not actively doing a lot of self-reflection, I lovingly challenge all of you guys to do that. But where I get really uncomfortable and really nervous if I'm talking to an agent or if I'm talking to any industry person, it's usually on topics that I don't understand well enough. And so, knowing that about myself, I said, okay, I'm taking all of arming my CPCU information, arming what I'm learning in my degree. And then I got my flood um, certification from the Institute as an ANFI, Associate National Flood Insurance. And then I also, rode a desk with some folks uh, at our home office and said, hey, teach me about flood. And it took a lot in the first couple of agency visits. And I'm going to give out a shout out to Brian Byrne, principal of Horizon Insurance in Columbus. He was my first agency visit, fellow Ginger also that I ever went to. And Brian Bowerman went with me, and I actually just went back a month ago and visited Brian, and we caught Brian from the agency and caught up and reflected on that meeting. And you don't know what you don't know there, but I think arming myself with as much education. And then the other tip is listening more than you talk. So if you're a territory manager going into somebody's office and you're saying, "Hey, I've got this new tool or this digital appetite guide or try this or try that," maybe take a beat before entering with your sales pitch and listen. What are the things going on with the agency? Are they that county seat agency who, it's not technology focused, it's relationship focused. Um, and solve after you understand. So that was something I learned really quick too, because when I would assume something is when an agent would call me out and say, "Well, you're 23 years old." A lot of people didn't know how old I was. I wouldn't tell people purposely. Um, there's a lot of people in the industry who think I'm older than I am, and I'm happy with that. Um, so it's very much it was fake it till you make it, really.
Fake it till you make it, but learn as much as you can, right? Dig
Yeah,
into the, because this is a deeply technical industry, right?
yeah.
Fake it till you make it is only gonna get you so far. At the same time, like I think you can sin both ways. You can become very knowledgeable and not have the confidence, not do the fake it till you make it at all,
Mhm,
right? And you'll have a hard time getting anybody to listen. Or you could be a really good, you could come across as really confident, and then when things get technical, you can't stand on your own 2 feet. And as a marketing rep, as a sales manager, it really is a matter of knowing where to find the answers, knowing who the
yes.
person is back at home office that can get something done, right. It takes a lot of networking
Mhm,
internally. It takes a lot of influencing internally, but I think it takes both. It takes the confidence, it takes the network, and it takes the academic knowledge. uh so you did the national territory for a while,
mhm,
and then you transitioned to the role you're at now. So
mhm.
what led to that transition, and what's the role like?
So, how it happened was interesting. Um, so I'm running like crazy, gone 80% of the year traveling for the flood job, and COVID hits. And we go, okay, what does it look like now to manage these agents? And, I did a very much virtual approach. Things got quiet in flood because flood wasn't the number one of anybody's. I mean, the flood department, you know, it wasn't just me. This was a group effort. But when I came in and instituted some practices and collaborated with our team, we added $1 million of premium in a year, um, which was awesome. Um, but then again, we're We're never anybody's, first asks to the dance. So when COVID hit, it was really just about being creative. And it was the fall of 2020 when the job posting for another agency specialist came up. And these roles are very highly coveted in our company. I think a lot of it has to do with the culture that we have on our distribution team. Um, but then it's just also a really cool role where it's different than a territory manager. It's different from an underwriter, and not that those roles are bad. I think those roles are awesome. Um, but I call it a little bit of a fixer, where you get to dabble in so many different aspects of an enterprise while still being agency facing. And so the role opens up, and I'm pregnant. I had found out that I was pregnant on Halloween of 2020, and we were at our best friend's wedding, and they are now the godparents of my daughter. So it was my mini wedding present to them was, hey, you're getting a goddaughter. So apply for the job, and because we are so protective of our culture and distribution, and because we really aim to find the right fit for folks, it was a 3-month interview process. And so every time I would, hop on, do another virtual interview, and by this time I was pretty pregnant. It was a cool feeling to go, I know this little person inside of me has my back. And while I get nervous, she's like also kicking me. And I go, and nobody can tell that you're pregnant when you're interviewing virtually. So some people had known, but not a lot of folks. And then uh I remember it was a Friday, and I called Bowerman up because he was on the interviewing committee. My current boss was like, "Can you give me any like information? I know it's down to the final people. Can you give me?" And he goes, "I can't, but you're gonna find out on Monday." And I was like, "You're gonna let me wait the whole weekend?" And I got the call from Chris Klein that Monday, where it was welcome to the team. And you want to talk about learning. That was a whole, and still is, a learning journey where, not only do you have to have the technical and product knowledge to be able to answer an agent's question. We're not underwriters. When there is something complicated, um, I send it over to our fabulous underwriters, but when we do some initial onboarding or talk about appetite when we're prospecting an agent, and they ask you account questions like, hey, will you take this, will you take that, you got to be pretty technical in your knowledge. But then also when it comes to agents buying and selling and M&A activity, from your smallest of your small agencies to these large giant broker acquisitions where it can get a little political, how to navigate that, how to have crucial conversations. Never thought that I would be involved in contract negotiations and get as close as I have with our legal department. Um, which when I was choosing my master's, which in the middle of COVID, I decided, hey, I'll get my master's in insurance from Olivet. Great, great program if anybody's looking for one. Um, when I was looking to do my master's, I was between Olivet for their MBA in insurance or Texas A&M's law school to get their master's of jurisprudence. It's like a mini law degree. So I'd always been really interested in law. So finding that this role, you get a contract negotiation element because our team is the subject matter experts on our contract language. But then also, it's influencing without authority. So, Tony, what you were talking about as a territory manager, you don't have direct reports. Your agents are independent, and it's being able to influence and influence throughout multiple business units. Um, and then also ultimately when it comes to who we're appointing, we're the ones bringing those to the table and either advocating, yes, we need to appoint them, or I don't think this makes sense. Um, and then probably the part of my job that I have grown the most from is we handle agency terminations as well. And I've always been horrible at giving bad news. I'm still pretty bad at it, but I've got to learn from the best through this. So the distribution job, it's fun. It's it's a lot because we do so many different things on our team. Um, but being able to be there for agents with no P&L attached to the role and truly being that advisor, um, and being that lifeline into the company, um, I love it. I love this role.
It's fantastic. So on the education side, you've jumped in with both feet, right?
Mhm.
CPCU, the MBA in insurance, and if I what advice
AIC.
what advice do you have for young insurance professionals? What uh, would you do it if you were doing it again? Would you do it the exact same way you did it in the same order? Uh,
Yes, and I know there's folks who debate, and I go back and forth and I debate Chris Carl about this all the time, whether it's masters or CPCU and masters. Um, I think it's finding the right master's program when you go to do it, but then also the intentionality of how you do your CPCU. Um, so what I would tell folks is mainly find out the way you learn. If you learn the best by reading and taking a test, okay, read the CPCU book and then take the test. That was not me. That was not me at all. I actually had downloaded the Institute's app with hundreds of almost thousands of test questions. And I would go through, understand my baseline. And if I got something wrong, I would go into my book and I would find it and I would highlight and I would annotate for um, for part of them. And that helped me remember and then also find real world applications. So if we were talking about stacking of limits or reinsurance, I would engage folks at my company and ask questions about it. When it came to do my AIC, I would bother people in claims like, hey, help me understand this, help me understand that. So if you do have a role within an organization, whether it's agency, whether it's carrier, don't be afraid to reach out to people who specialize in those areas to help it connect for you. Because if you're just taking the test to add another letter of spew of alphabets behind your name, I believe you're doing it wrong because it's truly, and especially with now how the institutes, making taking the exam a lot easier for folks. You can do it quicker. I don't know about you guys, but every time I would go into a test center, I would get so nervous and I would want to throw up before I got my my results of my test. Um, but make the most of that journey learning it. Um, for my master's too, my husband did a program for his MBA. It was an executive MBA. And it was just a lot of taking tests and not, their class never met. Where Olivet's program, we each class met once a week for 3 hours, and um, and I got to sit with 15 other amazing insurance professionals. We had an AVP of claims from an organization teaching us spreadsheets. How awesome! And it was all applicable to to insurance on a real life basis. And we also, when we would get on there and just talk to each other, we had all different ages, all different backgrounds, all different cultures, um, and cultures of companies too, to see how this carrier might do things, or that agency, or this vendor. Um, so finding a program, and this is not a commercial for Olivet, it's just the one I know of and that I did. Um, it is finding one that brings the most value to it, because especially if your company's going to pay for it or you're going to pay for it out of pocket, which I did it too quickly and I paid for it mostly out of pocket, which people
Don't do that. I
no,
agree.
don't do it. Maximize the most of your company's
Uh-huh.
education reimbursement policies, please. Yeah, but that's how I did it and how I would encourage folks to do it.
Okay. So what do you want to do next? And of course, this it's a very, it'll definitely change over time. Clearly, you're loving the carrier space, loving Westfield. What kind of roles do you envision doing in the future?
Yeah. So when I retire from Westfield, if Westfield will have me for another 25 or so years, um, I want to go buy an agency. So if there are any left and they haven't been gobbled up by
You're
private
doing it off the
equity,
first time. Maybe.
I'm
Yeah.
going back. Uh, but in my journey, what I have learned, um, and I learned this lately, is I was so rote and hardened on, okay, I want to take this step and that step, and this makes sense. And not that that's off putting to other people, but I would just caution folks, like, yes, be vocal and advocate for yourself and find people who will advocate for you, um, for certain career opportunities. But just because a different role might feel like a detour or might feel like more of a lateral movement, it's that breadth of experience and those connections, where, for example, and I would like to be ELT and focusing on leading operations at Westfield, in the next 15, 20 years. And the way to do that is, operations speaking, you're looking at having experiences in HR, communications, marketing, claims, IT. And so, what my goal is right now is staying curious, staying open, um, not saying, oh, I'm interested in that job, but I think it's going to detract from my overall goal, because who knows? Who the heck knows? There have been folks, and I think like yourself, Tony, and other people that we know, that we've been able to have such awesome experiences uh, throughout our tenure that were non-traditional. I mean, there are folks that started associate underwriter, senior underwriter, manager, manage, and go on and lead product. And, there are those certain pathways there if you want to stay, you know, on the straight and narrow of a trajectory. But what what I'm embracing the most right now is being open, being curious, finding out where my passions are. um, and I had also, like, pigeonholed myself into thinking, oh, the next step, the next opportunity, I want to be a leader. I want to manage people. And some folks gave me some really great advice and said, ask yourself why you want to be a leader. That's what I did. And I started, and a lot of it came around education and being able to support and help mentor people to build or go through the amount of education that I did. And then it was funny, and my husband is a manager of, a large group of people, and I asked him, "Hey, why did you want to be a manager?" And he goes, well, that was the only way to move up in manufacturing. So I thought I was going to get some insightful answer from him. But if you're looking to go into leadership just to move up or because it seems like the right thing to do, being an individual contributor is great too.
And there are
Um,
companies where like there are individual contributor roles that pay enough
oh yeah,
yes. So uh if you be a people leader if you think you're gonna love leading people,
mhm,
but don't do it for just for the career growth.
yeah. Because a lot of it, you think, hey, I'm going to have so much more responsibility, and for my husband, it's are people showing up to work? And it's the human element, which is great if that's something you're super passionate about. Um, but check in with other folks who are leaders and say, hey, how does your job change?
They
Other
spend
than,
most of their time on HR issues.
yeah, yeah. Um, so 5 years ago, myself would go, this is the job I want. This is, and now I'm 28. I'm a mom to a 2 year, 3 month old. Her name's Evie, and she's a handful, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I go, okay, who is the Myranda now? The Myranda is a kind, caring mom, wife, and want to do the best damn job I can for my career or for my company. And at the end of the day, what my company and what insurance companies out there do is we keep promises. Our insureds pay us to be there for them on their worst day and promise to uphold and pay claims when they meet our definitions. Um, and my only guidelines to myself for what I want to do with my next steps is what am I most wanting to do in that promise part? Everything I want to do comes back to how to support an insured, how to support an agent. And there's so many ways you can do that. So for once, Miranda doesn't know the answers to things.
I like the message of stay flexible and introspect on where you want to go and what part you want to play in the promises that we make and fulfill. Uh, definite maturity
Mhm.
has been gained in the last 5 years. Great to have you back on the show. It's not a lot of people that stick to an early career company for this long, and I like full credit to Westfield for being a great place to work at, and full credit to you for recognizing that and grabbing onto the right opportunities, taking advantage of them to grow there. Um, Great catching up as always.
Hey, you too. Thanks for having me. See you at Applied.
Absolutely.